Cold wind, empty highway, blinking streetlight. Riverbend County usually slept early. Nothing dramatic happened here. No headlines, no sirens, no chaos. That changed on a Thursday night. 17-year-old Evan Cole clocked in for his evening shift at a roadside grocery mart. Last year of high school, saving for a used car, basketball in the mornings, work at night. Simple routine, predictable life. At 9:12 p.m., he texted his mother. Shift started. Home by 11. That was the last normal moment. At 9:46 p.m., a customer walked in, nervous, hurried, looking around too much. He approached Evan near the counter. "Hey, red sedan outside," the man said quietly. "Someone scraped your door." Evan frowned. "My car." "Yeah, you might want to see." Evan told the cashier. "I'll be right back." He stepped outside. Security camera showed him walking toward the parking lot lights. Then nothing useful. A delivery truck blocked the angle. After that, only empty pavement. 10 minutes passed. The cashier assumed he was dealing with insurance photos or phone calls. 20 minutes passed. Still no Evan. Manager walked outside, checked the lot. Evan's car was there. Door locked. Backpack on the back seat. Phone not inside. That's when the manager called 911. Sirens came fast. Because Evan wasn't just a teen. He was the son of Detective Mark Cole, 20-year veteran, missing persons unit. When Mark arrived, he didn't run. He didn't shout. He didn't panic. He scanned. Ground. Tire marks. Light poles. Camera angles. Store reflections in glass. Professional eyes first. Father second. "He would not leave his car," Mark said quietly. "Not like this." Search teams formed within an hour. Patrol units, volunteers, highway alerts, drone sweeps. Nothing. No struggle signs. No dropped items. No witnesses with clear details. Only one blurry statement. "A dark pickup truck," someone said, unsure. Maybe. By morning, the case board was already full. Photos. Timelines. Arrows. Question marks. But no direction. Mark stared at the board too long. Coffee untouched. His partner spoke softly. "We'll find him." Mark answered without looking. "Evidence finds people. Hope doesn't." Day one ended. No ransom call. No digital trace. No confirmed vehicle. Just silence. At home, Evan's room looked frozen in motion. Half-open notebook. Charging cable on the bed. Shoes by the door. His mother sat there, hands folded, not crying, not speaking. Just waiting. At 2:18 a.m., Mark replayed the parking lot footage again. Frame by frame. Frame by frame. Then he noticed something small. Not a vehicle. Not a person. A reflection. In the store window glass behind Evan, just for half a second, a figure standing too still. Watching. Mark froze the frame. Zoomed. Blur. Noise. Unclear. But deliberate. Someone was already there. Waiting before the car damage story was told. This wasn't random. This was planned. And yet, every lead after that died within hours. By the end of day 2, command said the words investigators hate most. "We've hit a wall." That night, a retired dispatcher told Evan's aunt something strange. "There's a woman," she said quietly, "who helps when trails disappear." Mark Cole did not believe in that kind of help. But by sunrise, he would be asked to choose evidence or something he could not explain. What if the only new lead comes from someone who never visited the crime scene? Morning came gray, heavy, restless. Detective Mark Cole hadn't slept. Not really. Just closed eyes, opened them again. Coffee tasted like nothing. Phones kept ringing. Tips kept coming. None useful. At 8:40 a.m., Evan's aunt Laura walked into the command office without knocking. "You need to talk to someone," she said. Mark didn't look up. "We already are. Everyone." "Not police," she replied. "A reader." Mark exhaled slowly. "No. She's helped before." "No. She doesn't charge." "No. She knew about the river case last winter." Mark turned now. Tired eyes. Controlled tone. "Laura, when facts fail, people invent comfort." I don't investigate comfort. Laura stepped closer. Softer voice. What if she gives a direction, not comfort? Silence. Mark's partner Ruiz watched from the doorway. Ruiz said carefully, "We've chased thinner leads." Mark didn't answer. But he didn't say no again. They met her outside town limits. Small house. No sigmboard. No drama. No candles in windows. Just wind chimes. The woman opened the door before they knocked. "You're late," she said calmly. Mark stiffened. "We didn't give a time." "You were supposed to come yesterday," she replied, stepping aside. "But doubt delays people." Her name was Mara Vance. Mid-50s. Plain clothes. Steady eyes. No performance energy. Inside, no strange props. Just notebooks. Maps. Old radios. Mark stayed standing. "I'm not here for a show," he said. "Good," Mara answered. "I don't perform." Ruiz placed Evan's photo on the table. She didn't touch it. Didn't lean in. Didn't even look at it fully. Instead, she said quietly, "Don't tell me anything yet." Mark crossed his arms. Skeptical. Guarded. Mara closed her eyes. Room stayed silent. 30 seconds. 1 minute. Then she spoke slow, uneven phrases. "Running water, but not a river," she said. "Metal smell. Broken fence. A barking dog that isn't nearby, just heard. White numbers on green." Ruiz glanced at Mark. Mark gave nothing back. Mara continued. "He's not where he was taken. He was moved. Twice." Mark finally said, "We never said he was taken." Mara opened her eyes. "You didn't have to." She reached for a blank paper, drew a curved line, then a square, then an X beside it. "Here," she said. Mark looked down. It meant nothing to him. Ruiz leaned closer. "That curve could be Route 16 bend." Mark shook his head. "Too vague." Mara slid the paper toward him again. "Then ignore the drawing," she said calmly. "Remember the sound." "What sound?" Mark asked. "Industrial humming," she answered. "Like constant breathing. Not traffic. Not machines starting. Machines already running." Ruiz whispered. "Cold storage units, maybe." Mark stepped back. "Coincidences stack easily," he told himself. "Patterns appear when you want them." He picked up the photo again. "Anything else?" he asked, almost challenging. Mara looked at Evan's picture for the first time. Her voice changed slightly. "Tell his mother," she said softly. He heard her voice this morning. Mark's jaw tightened. "That's impossible." "Yes," Mara said, meeting his eyes. "But it still happened." Outside, Ruiz spoke first. "Some of that fits," Ruiz said. "Uncomfortably well." Mark folded the paper once. "Or she's fishing," he replied. But he didn't throw it away. By noon, a patrol unit called in a small detail most ignored. A damaged green highway marker. White numbers. Near an old refrigerated warehouse zone. Mark stared at the message longer than he wanted to. If the map from a stranger matches a real location, coincidence, or direction. The warehouse road sat outside the delivery grid. Trucks rarely pass now. Businesses moved years ago. Only a few cold storage buildings still operated. Mostly automated, mostly empty of staff. Mark drove. Ruiz beside him. No sirens. Quiet cases needed quiet arrivals. The broken green highway marker stood exactly where patrol reported. Bent post. Scratched paint. White numbers 16B. Ruiz looked at Mark. Route curve. Just like the sketch. Mark didn't answer. They rolled forward slowly. Windows cracked open. Then they heard it. A low vibration in the air. Not loud. Not sharp. Steady. Mechanical breathing. Ruiz said under his breath. "There's your hum." 3 warehouse units stood ahead. 2 locked with chain gates. 1 with a partially open service entrance. No vehicles outside. No security guard booth active. Mark stepped out. Listened again. Wind. Metal rattle. That hum. He spoke quietly into radio. "Unit check perimeter. No rush entry. Procedure first. Always." Inside, the air felt colder than outside. Not freezer cold, just wrong cold. Concrete floors. Long corridor. Old smell of insulation and dust. Flashlights on. Footsteps echoed. Ruiz pointed. Fence. At the far interior loading area, a section of wire barrier had been cut and bent back. Not recently, but not old either. Mark crouched. Touched the metal edge. Cloth fibers caught on a twist point. Red thread. Ruiz photographed it. Could be anything, Ruiz said. Mark nodded. But he bagged it. They moved deeper. Room after room, empty racks, silent pallets, closed cooling doors. Then sound. A bark. Both men froze. Ruiz whispered. You heard that too? Mark nodded slowly. A dog. Faint. Distant. Echoing through structure or through vents. They followed the direction. It faded. Returned. Faded again. Finally Ruiz checked building layout on tablet. Next property over, he said. Animal boarding facility. Shares wall line. Mark exhaled once. Another match. Not proof, but not nothing. They found no person inside. No restraint signs. No personal items. But near the rear exit, Mark noticed tire patterns in dust. Different sizes. Overlapping. Moved twice, Ruiz said quietly, remembering Mara's words. Mark stood still a long moment. He didn't like it. Not because it sounded mystical. Because it sounded operational. Someone using transfer points. Temporary holds. Transport staging. That was criminal logistics, not random panic behavior. Outside again, sunlight felt too bright. Ruiz asked, so what now? Mark looked back at the building. We checked transport records, he said. Cold chain rentals, short-term leases, utility spikes. Ruiz nodded. Then Mark added, almost reluctantly, and we don't ignore the rest of what she said. Ruiz didn't smile. Didn't joke. Just agreed. Back at the command board, new pins went up. Warehouse zone. Route 16B. Animal facility next wall. Pattern forming. But still no Evan. That evening Mara left a voicemail. No greeting, no introduction. Just one sentence. Tell the father, the second location has blue light, not white. Mark replayed it 3 times. Blue light. Ruiz turned his laptop around slowly. Portable grow labs, he said. They use blue spectrum arrays. Mark felt a small shift inside. Not belief, but alignment. Pieces were no longer floating. They were pointing. If the second site is active right now, are they already too late or exactly on time? Utility records came faster than expected. One flag location stood out. Short-term power spike. High night usage. Low daytime draw. 3 weeks active. No registered business name. Ruiz tapped the screen. Matches grow lamp profile. Mark read the address. Old printing facility. Edge of county line. Recently leased under a shell company. Who signed the lease? Mark asked. Digital signature, Ruiz replied. Trace pending. Mark grabbed his jacket. Let's not announce ourselves, he said. No sirens. No marked cars. 2 unmarked units only. They approached just after dusk. From outside the building looked dead. Windows blacked out from inside. Parking lot cracked, weeds pushing through. But along one roof seam faint glow. Not white. Blue. Mark felt it in his chest before he admitted it in his mind. They circled wide. Checked rear access. One side door had new hinges. Ruiz whispered. Recent replacement. Mark nodded. Camera, he asked. Ruiz scanned. Dummy dome. No wiring. Mark exhaled once. Confidence or laziness, he said. They entered slow. Air warmer than expected. Electrical smell. Fans running somewhere deep inside. They followed the sound through a hallway lined with old poster frames still hanging crooked. Then voices. Muffled. Distant. Not clear enough for words. Both officers paused. Mark raised 2 fingers, hold. Ruiz angled a small mirror under the next doorway. Blue light flooded the reflection. Inside, rows of lighting rigs. Tables. Plastic containers. But not plants. Electronics. Battery packs. Signal repeaters. Burner phones charging in clusters. Ruiz whispered. Comms hub. Mark understood instantly. This wasn't a grow site. It was a relay point. Disposable devices in, devices out. Calls routed. Signals bounced. Locations masked. Kidnappers who plan movement used nodes like this. Organized. Methodical. Mark recorded everything silently. No confrontation yet. Too risky. Unknown count inside. They withdrew the same way they came. Outside, Ruiz finally spoke. That psychic said second location, Ruiz said. Not final location. Mark looked at the dark window again. Yes, he answered quietly. Which means there's a third. Back in the car, Mark played Mara's earlier message again. Running water but not river. Metal smell. Broken fence. Dog herd not seen. White numbers on green. Moved twice. He added a new note himself. Communication staging. Ruiz checked tower pings from seized burner signals near the building. One number stayed active longer than others, Ruiz said. Only receiving. Not sending. Tracker phone, Mark replied. They triangulated last passive ping. Location appeared near water. Not river. A treatment facility. Mark sat still. Running water, he said quietly. Ruiz nadid. Industrial, Ruiz added. Metal smell fits. Night wind picked up outside the windshield. Mark started the engine again. This time with urgency. His phone buzzed. New voicemail. Mara again. Voice lower than before. He's above the sound, not beside it, she said. Remember that. Mark frowned. Above the sound. Not beside. He repeated it twice. Ruiz suddenly snapped his fingers. Overhead tanks, Ruiz said. Water treatment towers. Mark turned the car without another word. If the final location is vertical, not horizontal, where do you search first when time is already gone? The water treatment facility sat on a ridge outside town. Concrete tanks. Tall towers. Rotating warning lights. Chain fencing topped with wire. At night, it looked like a silent factory for clouds. Mark parked beyond the main gate line. No lights, he said. No sirens. Ruiz checked perimeter cams through city grid access. Front gate monitored, Ruiz whispered. Rear service ladder blind angle. They moved on foot. Gravel crunch sounded louder than it should. Wind pushed a steady chemical metal smell through the air. Metal smell. Another match Mark didn't want to admit. At the rear structure, a vertical ladder rose to an upper catwalk wrapped around the main tank. Mark tested the rung. Cold. Solid. Recently cleaned. Unlike the dusty rails nearby. Maintenance. Ruiz asked quietly. Or staging, Mark replied. They climbed. Halfway up, the low thunder of water processing grew stronger, a constant rushing echo inside the tank walls. Above the sound. Not beside it. Mara's words replayed again in Mark's mind. At the catwalk level, Ruiz stopped suddenly. Camera, he mouthed. Small. Magnetic mount. Portable. Aimed toward ladder approach. Mark leaned just enough to see. Battery powered. Not facility equipment. Someone wanted warning time. Ruiz disabled it gently. They continued along the catwalk curve. Then Mark saw it. A utility hatch door slightly misaligned. Teeny detail. Big meaning. He opened it slowly. Inside, a narrow service room built into the tower structure. Tool cabinet. Valve controls. Emergency radio. And a chair. Not bolted. Placed. Mark scanned the floor. Scuff marks. Shoe drag patterns. Tape residue but removed. Ruiz whispered. Temporary hold point. Mark checked corners. No person. No bag. No device. But taped under the chair frame, a folded foil wrapper. Ruiz bagged it. Energy bar, Ruiz said. Recent. Mark's jaw tightened. Not abandoned long ago. They were close but not in time. Mark stepped back out onto catwalk. Looked across the dark valley. Thinking like transport. High point. Transfer node. Visual clearance. Low interruption risk. He said quietly. This was the second move location. Ruiz nadid. Which means third is ground level again. Mark's phone vibrated. Unknown number. He answered. Silence first. Then a young male voice, shaky, forced calm. He's okay, the voice said. For now. Mark did not react outwardly. Proof, Mark replied. A pause. Then a sound through the line. 3 knocks. Hollow metal echo. Tank echo. Recorded earlier or live nearby. Call ended. Ruiz ter. Trace. Running, Mark said. Signal bounced once, then died. But not before leaving a radius ring. Rail yard district. Old freight containers. Mobile holding options. Ruiz exhaled sharply. They're rotating containers. Mark looked back once more at the tower room. Silent chair. Tape ghost marks. Empty air. He felt it then, not fear, not hope. Pressure. The kind that says the window is narrowing. As they reached the ladder, Mark's phone buzzed again. Text message. From Mara. Only 5 words. Don't follow the loud path. Mark read it twice. Rail yards were loud. Very loud. He stopped climbing. Ruiz looked up. What? Mark answered quietly. They want us to hear where they are. If the obvious location is a trap, where is the quiet one they don't want found? Rail yard noise rolled across the valley. Metal clangs. Engine bursts. Coupling crashes. Too loud. Too obvious. Mark stood still at the base of the tower ladder, phone still in hand. Don't follow the loud path. He replayed the message again. Ruiz crossed his arms. If not rail yard, then what sits near rail yard but silent? Mark pulled up the grid map. Zoomed out. Then in. Warehouses. Scrap fields. Repair sheds. Then he saw it. A gray rectangle with no activity tags. Closed municipal archive, Ruiz read. Paper record storage. Shut down last year after mold issue. Mark nodded slowly. Thick walls, Mark said. Climate sealed. Sound dampening. Quiet. Too quiet. They redirected units without radio chatter. Direct texts only. Low profile. Archive building sat behind a line of dead trees. Windows boarded. Sign half fallen. No vehicles outside. Ruiz whispered. Looks empty. Mark replied. Good cover always does. Rear door chain showed fresh cut marks, painted over badly. Inside air felt stale. Filtered. Still. Rows of metal shelving filled the dark. Plastic-wrapped boxes stacked to ceiling height. Flashlights moved slowly. Then a sound. Not loud. Not mechanical. A soft double tap. Pause. Double tap again. Ruiz froze. Mark turned his light off. Listen. There. From deeper inside. Top. Top. Human rhythm. They moved shelf to shelf. Careful. Silent. At the far end, a temporary partition wall built from stacked archive crates. Behind it, a narrow gap. Mark leaned close. Evan, he said quietly, not loudly, not urgently, steady. A breath answered from the other side. I'm here, a weak voice replied. Relief did not explode. It landed heavy. They opened the crate barrier carefully. Evan sat inside a cleared pocket space. Hands free. Ankles loosely tied, intentional delay method, not restraint method. He was tired, pale, but alert. Ruiz cut the tie. You okay? Ruiz asked softly. Evan nodded once. They said I'd be moved again. When? Mark asked. Tonight, Evan answered. Different vehicle each time. Did you see faces? Mark asked. Never clearly, Evan said. Always hats, lights behind them. Mark helped him stand. Then Evan added something unexpected. They argued, Evan said quietly. About stopping. Stopping what? Ruiz asked. The plan, Evan replied. One of them didn't want to continue. Mark logged that mentally. Fracture inside group. Useful. Outside air felt warmer now. Paramedics waited without sirens. Quiet treatment. Quiet extraction. Evan's mother arrived minutes later. She didn't run. She held his face in both hands and whispered, I kept talking to you this morning. Evan blinked. I heard you, he said simply. Mark turned away slightly. Not from emotion. From recognition. Inside the patrol car, Ruiz spoke low. She said he heard his mother. Ruiz reminded him. Mark answered after a long pause. Yes. No sarcasm. No resistance. Just acknowledgement. But the case was not closed. Because no suspects were in custody. No ransom trail. No clear motive. Just logistics. Movement. Silence. Mark's phone buzzed again. Message from Mara. He was never the target, it read. He was the message. Mark stared at the words. Not the target. The message. Ruiz read over his shoulder. That changes motive, Ruiz said. Mark nodded slowly. Yes, he said. It changes everything. If the victim was only a warning, then who was the real destination? Evan slept at the hospital. Vitals steady. Mild dehydration. No major injury. Doctors called it controlled holding, not harm intent. That detail stayed with Mark. Controlled. Measured. Not chaotic. Which meant purpose. Mark stood outside the observation window. Arms folded. Thinking in patterns, not feelings. Ruiz joined him quietly. Interview when he wakes, Ruiz said. Mark nodded. Short. No pressure. Morning came slow. When Evan opened his eyes again, Mark sat beside the bed. Not as detective first, father second, but balanced between both. You said they argued, Mark began gently. Evan nodded. One voice younger, Evan said. One older. Older one gave orders. Younger one questioned. What kind of questions? Mark asked. Timing, Evan replied. Exposure. Attention. Mark leaned slightly closer. Did they mention any names? Evan hesitated, searching memory. Not names, he said. Titles. Mark waited. Like positions, Evan continued. One said, he'll understand when the file opens. Mark's expression changed, small but real. What file? Ruiz asked. Evan shook his head. I don't know, but they said you'd recognize it. Mark stood up slowly, because he did recognize it. Back at the command office, Mark opened a locked cabinet drawer rarely used now. Old cases. Internal cases. One file marked with a red stripe. Operation Harbor Ledger. Ruiz read the summary page quickly. Financial transport corruption, Ruiz said. 10 years ago. Mark nodded. Evidence chain interference, Mark added. Funds rerouted during seizure transfers. Ruiz looked up. Inside job? Ruiz asked. Almost proven, Mark replied. But the key witness recanted. Ruiz flipped pages. Witness Daniel Voss, Ruiz read. Warehouse supervisor. Mark tapped the page. Now logistics consultant, Mark said quietly. Cold storage contracts. Mobile container routes. Pieces connected. Warehouse nodes. Transfer points. Communication relays. Not random. Demonstration. Message operation. Ruiz leaned back. They took your son to say they're active again. Mark answered softly. Yes. No anger in the word. Only clarity. Phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Mark answered. Same voice as before. Younger male. You got him back, the caller said. Yes, Mark replied calmly. Then open the file. The voice added. This time don't close it halfway. Call ended. Trace attempt failed. Ruiz exhaled. They want investigation reopened. Mark nodded. Publicly, Mark added. Loudly. Ruiz frowned. That draws attention to them, Ruiz said. Mark shook his head slightly. No, he answered. It draws attention to what they want exposed. Message crime. Signal crime. Not profit crime. Mark checked his phone again. New text from Mara. You think they started this? It read. They didn't. Mark typed back for the first time. Who did? Reply came almost instantly. Someone inside the file. Mark stared at the red-striped folder. Inside. Not outside. Silent realization moved through him like cold water. This wasn't revenge from criminals. It was pressure from truth. If the real threat is hidden inside official records, who benefits when the truth stays buried? Operation Harbor Ledger reopened quietly. Not public yet. Not announced. Only 4 people knew. Mark. Ruiz. Internal Auditor Chun. And Records Analyst Paula Reed. Conference room blinds closed. Old file boxes stacked on table. Dust smell. Paper age. Forgotten decisions. Chun spoke first. This case was labeled incomplete, she said. Not cleared. Not dismissed. Just shelved. Mark nodded. Shelved cases don't create kidnapping messages. Paula slid a ledger copy forward. Unless the money never stopped moving, she said. Columns. Transfers. Seizure inventories. Ruiz traced one line with his finger. Storage transfers routed through private contractors, Ruiz said. Same model used today. Mark noticed repeated vendor codes. Different names. Same routing numbers. Shell layers. Laundry through logistics, Mark said quietly. Chin looked up. Here's the buried note, she added. Witness statement amendment sealed. Mark frowned. Why sealed? No judge signature, Chin replied. Administrative seal only, which meant internal decision, not court decision. Paula opened the scanned attachment. Room went quiet. Witness Daniel Voss never fully recanted. He revised. Original statement said, funds diverted by transport supervisor. Revised statement said, diversion ordered by oversight liaison. Oversight liaison. Ruiz checked the roster list. Then stopped. That's a badge roll, Ruiz said slowly. Not contractor. Mark already knew, because he recognized the liaison name. Retired Captain Harold Brigg. Decorated. Honored. Trusted. Mark sat back. Dead? Chin asked. Retired, Mark answered. Consulting now. Ruiz added. 4 logistics security firms. Same network circle. Same structure. Same movement style. Message crime made sense now. Not revenge. Exposure pressure. Someone wanted that buried correction noticed. Paula zoomed deeper into metadata. Revision timestamp, she said. Uploaded, but never processed into final record. Who blocked it? Mark asked. Paula checked admin stamp. Then swallowed. Authorization code yours, she said quietly. Room shifted. Mark leaned forward. That's impossible, he said. Code matches, Paula replied. Digital signature clone, or delegated approval. Mark remembered suddenly. 10 years ago. Double case overload. Delegated clearance batches. Rubber stamp day. He closed his eyes briefly. Silent realization. Not conspiracy. Negligence. Truth buried by speed. Ruiz spoke gently. They're not punishing you, Ruiz said. They're forcing correction. Mark nodded once. Yes. Phone buzzed again. Mara. No greeting. Don't chase the retired man, she said. He's not the one who kept it buried. Mark frowned. Who then? He asked. Her answer came like a riddle. The one who benefits from delay. Not diversion. Call ended. Chan checked current contract holders tied to Old Harbor ledger seizures. One name repeated across extensions. Evidence holding subcontractor. Still active. Still paid. Still quiet. Ruiz looked at Mark. If the truth voids those contracts, Ruiz said, someone loses a lot. Mark stood. Then that's who feared the file opening, he replied. If the kidnapping was only a signal, what happens when the truth is about to go public? The subcontractor name was Northline Custodial Logistics. Plain name. Low profile. Long contracts. Too long. They handle seized goods holding, Chen said. Vehicles, electronics, bull cassettes. Temporary custody. Mark nodded. Temporary shouldn't mean permanent revenue. Paula projected payment history. Renewal after renewal. Extension after extension. No competitive rebid for 8 years. Ruiz whistled softly. That's not luck. That's protection. Mark asked one question. Who signs their renewals? Paula checked. Deputy Director approvals, she replied. Rotating signatures but same review office. Internal again. Mark felt the pattern lock into place. Not a crime ring hiding from police. A truth hidden inside paperwork. Kidnapping as signal, not leverage. Ruiz leaned forward. If Harbor Ledger is validated, Ruiz said, all those stored asset chains get audited. Chin added. And Northline contracts freeze immediately. Money stops. Silence breaks. Motive appears. Mark's phone vibrated. Unknown number again. He answered on speaker this time. The younger voice returned. You're reading it now, the caller said. Yes, Mark replied. Good, the voice answered. We tried reports. We tried complaints. We tried internal channels. Why take Evan? Ruiz asked sharply. Pause. Then honest tone. Because you're the only one who closes cases fully, the caller said. Even old ones. Mark did not react outwardly. Proof, Mark said calmly. If you want exposure, bring proof. Storage Unit C7, the caller replied. Archive overflow site. Not on official map. Call ended. Trace failed again but direction given. Chan checked city infrastructure layers. Hidden facility popped up. Decommissioned records annex, never removed from back-end grid. Ruiz looked at Mark. They're feeding us evidence, Ruiz said. Mark nodded. Yes, he answered. Because evidence lasts longer than threats. They entered Annex C7 that evening. Small. Concrete. Climate-controlled. Inside sealed pallets. Digital drives. Paper boxes. Transfer manifests. Paula opened one crate. Inside duplicate ledgers. Original numbers. Original signatures. Original diversion notes. Not copies. Backups. Insurance. Chin whispered. They preserved truth in case the system didn't. Mark stood very still. Respect formed quietly. Not approval of the method, but respect for the intent. Ruiz checked the stamps. Someone inside Northline archived these privately, Ruiz said. Whistle keeper. Mark corrected softly. Whistle protector. Because this wasn't exposure for fame. It was exposure for correction. Phone buzzed again. Mara. Final message style short. Truth doesn't shout, it read. It waits where records sleep. Mark looked around the annex room. Records sleeping. Exactly. He finally understood her pattern. Not magic. Attention direction. Symbol language. Different methods, same goal. Ruiz asked quietly. You believe her now? Mark answered after a pause. I believe results, he said. If the evidence is real, the contracts are corrupt, and the message senders never wanted money. Why are they still hiding? The annex evidence changed everything. Not loudly. Quietly. Audit flags triggered within hours. Contract reviews froze automatically. Northline payments paused pending verification. No press release yet. But inside the system, alarms were ringing. Ruiz leaned back in his chair. They handed us the case, he said. And vanished. Mark shook his head slightly. Not vanished, he replied. Stepped back. Chan traveled overnight through the preserved ledgers. Cross-checking. Validating. Matching chain of custody breaks. Every diversion note matched shipment anomalies from 10 years ago. Nothing fabricated. Nothing staged. Paula said softly. They didn't fake truth. They protected it. Mark stood at the board again. New photos added. New arrows drawn. But one column remained empty. Cinders. No names. No faces. No demands. Ruiz tapped that blank space. You want them caught? Ruiz asked. Mark thought longer than expected. Finally answered. I want them safe, he said. Ruiz blinked once. That's new, Ruiz replied. Mark nodded. Yes. Because intent matters. Method wrong. Purpose right. Phone rang again. Unknown but familiar pattern. Mark answered. You opened it, the young voice said. Yes, Mark replied. Then we're done, the caller answered. Not yet, Mark said calmly. You took a risk. You deserve protection. Soft exhale on the line. We never wanted spotlight, the voice said. Only correction. Why me? Mark asked. Because you read details, the caller replied. Most read summaries. Line clicked dead. No trace again. Ruiz Mailed Fantli. They profile investigators too, Ruiz said. Mark almost smiled back. Later that night, Mark visited Mara's house again. No appointment. Door opened before he knocked again. You didn't need visions, Mark said quietly. You needed pattern listeners. Mara poured tea without answering first. Then she said, people speak through behavior. Records speak through gaps. Mark nodded slowly. You never told me where to go, he added. I told you what not to ignore, she replied. Important difference. Mark understood now. Not prediction. Attention steering. Before leaving, Mark asked one last question. Why help? Mara answered simply. Because truth hates delay. Outside, wind moved the chimes again. Soft sound. Not loud. Like this case. Back home, Mark checked on Evan sleeping. Normal breathing. Calm face. Not a victim now. A turning point. Mark finally allowed the full realization. This was never a rescue story. It was a correction story. And correction rarely arrives politely. The truth is exposed, but one final record still hasn't been opened. And it changes who the real hero is. Most audits stop at confirmation. Mark's did not. He kept reading. Night shift. Desk lamp. Quiet office. One annex drive remained unopened. Not flagged. Not indexed. Just stored. Label C7 personal hold. Ruiz noticed it first. Not standard naming, Ruiz said. Mark agreed. Open it. Inside voice recordings. Not official interviews. Private logs. Timestamped across 7 years. Chen adjusted the audio filter. First clip played. A nervous male voice. This is Daniel Voss. If this file is heard, it means I didn't trust the review board. Ruiz sat forward. Original witness, Ruiz whispered. Audio continued. They didn't threaten me, Voss said in the recording. They warned me. The chain is bigger than transport. Mark listened without blinking. Next clip. I changed my statement to protect my team, Voss said. But I kept copies. Because someday, someone honest would reopen this. Paula covered her mouth slightly. Not fear. Respect. Next clip. If anything happens, check the student interns. They see everything. No one checks interns. Room went silent. Ruiz frowned. Interns. Chan pulled Old Harbor Ledger staff lists. 2 seasonal interns assigned to storage verification 10 years ago. Names surfaced. Liam Hale. Noah Mercer. Ruiz's eyes widened slightly. Age now mid-20s, Ruiz said. Technical certifications. Data logistics. Mark connected it instantly. Young voice on the phone. Operational knowledge. Evidence preservation skill. They were never criminals, Mark said quietly. They were witnesses who grew up. Paula checked employment records. Both had applied to Northline years later. Both rejected. Ruiz nodded slowly. Rejected witnesses, Ruiz said. Watching corruption continue. Message crime made final sense. Not revenge. Not profit. Accountability pressure. Mark played the last Voss recording. His voice was calmer there. If you're hearing this, Voss said, don't chase the messengers. Fix the ledger. Audio ended. No drama music. No confession tone. Just truth placed carefully in time. Mark leaned back. Silent realization settled fully now. The case never belonged to police alone. It belonged to record keepers. Observers. Detail readers. People ignored by hierarchy. Ruiz spoke softly. You going to issue warrants? Ruiz asked. Mark shook his head. No kidnappers, Mark replied. No ransom. No injury intent. No concealment of victim location long term. Ruiz nodded slowly. Message senders, Ruiz said. Yes, Mark answered. Phone buzzed once more. Unknown text. Ledger fixed, it read. We're done. No reply option. No follow-up. Mark did not try to trace it. Some truths don't want applause. They want correction. He closed the file box gently. Not slammed. Closed. The case is corrected, but the final twist isn't about crime. It's about who actually solved it. The audit closed officially in 12 days. Contracts voided. Reviews launched. Oversight hearings scheduled. Northline leadership resigned before questioning began. News channels called it a records integrity breakthrough. They were wrong. It wasn't a breakthrough. It was a correction. Mark stood in the briefing room, cameras outside, doors closed inside. Reporters wanted a hero name. He gave them none. This case was resolved through document verification and interdepartment cooperation, he said calmly. No drama words. No credit claims. After the room cleared, Ruiz laughed softly. You just disappointed every headline writer, Ruiz said. Mark nodded. Good, he replied. Headlines close stories too fast. Evan returned to school quietly. No interviews. No spotlight. By choice. His mother asked Mark one question that night. Who saved him? She said. Mark answered without hesitation. People who refused to ignore small details. Not police. Not psychics. Not systems. Observers. Record keepers. Pattern readers. Later, Mark visited Mara one last time. Wind chimes again. Same sound. Same calm. You knew they were witnesses, Mark said. Mara shook her head gently. I knew the signal didn't sound like greed, she replied. Greed is loud. This was careful. Mark almost smiled. Everyone will say you solved it, he said. Mara looked at him steadily. No, she answered. You listened long enough to see it. That sentence stayed with him. Listening is different from looking. Looking finds objects. Listening finds meaning. Back at his desk, Mark reviewed the entire chain once more. Warehouse node. Relay hub. Tower hold. Archive rescue. Each step not hidden, just overlooked. He recorded a private closing note for the file. Not required. Personal. Case resolved by preserved truth, he dictated. Primary lesson. Delay is the most common form of corruption. He saved it. No dramatic signature. Just a timestamp. Weeks later, a small envelope arrived. No return address. Inside, a single photocopy. Intern badge photo. 2 young faces. 10 years younger. Liam Hale. Noah Mercer. Backside handwritten. We didn't need credit. We needed correction. Mark placed it inside the file. Front pocket. Where first readers would see it. Silent recognition. Silent respect. No chase followed. No arrests needed. Because sometimes the cleanest ending is not punishment. It is repair. Mark turned off the office light. Case closed. Understanding open.